With Kyle, I guess Kyle's too polarizing. Kyle Rittenhouse.
I don't think so personally. His
with
personality is kind of unknown. It's more about the media's portrayal of him at the moment.
They're calling for his death.
He just came out and said he supports Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Right? He also said he's sick of the left and right using his case in order to push their political agenda. So he's coming out and making a lot of statements which are shocking and surprising a lot of people, including people on the right.
And those statements are the ones that actually carry weight in court. And when you get rulings, that's when people start paying attention. You're never going to get his message that message of saying I'm on the left and the right or I'm in the middle out there unless you actually get rulings in court. And that's why he's got to bring those cases.
It's a mistake for Kyle Rittenhouse to come out and say that he's supporting Black Lives Matter or criticizing one side over the other. Probably should just avoid the polarization subject
I agree with you.
altogether.
Yep. Totally.
But I'll put it this way. One of the problems I see with, I guess we'd call it the right, wasn't one of the jurors, this was going around, when asked in jury selection, he said he wouldn't be a good juror, he wouldn't be fair because he's pro 2A and he supports gun rights. That was a big thing, right? And that right there is like, I agree with our constitutional rights, so I shouldn't be involved in this because only people who don't agree with Kyle's rights should be judging him.
Yeah, there's this weird proclivity of people who are honest to be honest to the fault of themselves. No one is going to be able to remove every bit of bias from their decision making. Anybody who goes into a jury, the person I trust least is a person who's like, oh yeah, I can ignore all of my biases when making this jury decision.
You're out.
Yeah. Everybody's got some biases. The question is, can you reasonably make decisions? And a lot of people do that every day. The real issue with that is when you've got a criminal case, the person who says, oh man, I don't know if I could be impartial in this. That's the guy who's going to be the not guilty vote, right? Like that's never going to be the guilty vote. If the guy's like, I hate this guy, he's not going to go, oh, I just can't be impartial on this. I'm going to stay on I need to leave the jury. No, if you hate the defendant, then you're going to want to be on that jury.
And most judges, look, the job of the prosecution and defense when you're doing jury selection is to strike people you don't like or you think you don't like, or there's a possibility of you not liking them. What happens, though, 99% of the times is you get someone to say, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to be fair in this case because of my pro 2A position. The judge jumps in and says, well, actually, I'll remind you, this is jury service. It's a constitutional right. Goes through a litany of legal things and then basically asks him again, are you sure you can't set that aside? We're not asking you not to be pro 2A. Are you sure you can't set it aside and be impartial?
Set it aside. The judge should say, just to point out, the Second Amendment is a constitutional right.
Right.
If you're saying that you are opposed to constitutional rights, then perhaps I understand your argument.
You're being too pragmatic.
I'd be a crazy judge.
What the judges don't want to do is dismiss everyone, because you could pretty much dismiss 95% of all jurors in any trial at any given time. Yeah. If you didn't apply that standard, then there would be no jury trials ever. So the judge's job is to be like, we got to really keep these people in the box.
And despite all of the crap that Schrader got from the media about being pro Kyle or whatever, in that jury selection, one of the people stood up and said, I just don't believe that anybody should have a machine gun. And the judge took the time to say, well, just so you know, like, there's no allegation that anyone in this case had a machine gun. This is a semi-automatic, right? And he takes this really painstaking process to go through and explain that this was not a machine gun. It's not fully automatic. It's one trigger pull, one thing. It's perfectly generally legal firearm. That's, and he did take pains to do that. And that is someone who was likely going to be opposed to Kyle Rittenhouse.
Was that juror selected?
I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't remember. But it was early on in that jury selection process, and that was kind of a slog.
I don't think I could ever be on a grand jury or a jury. I just outright be like, I am heavily biased against the state, and there is literally nothing that's ever going to change my mind. Okay, I'll tell you this.
They might accept your word on that.
Yeah. We were talking with Michael Malice on the show, and he was telling the story that I think it's mostly fictionalized for legal purposes, but he basically said to a prosecutor in a grand jury, I'm an anarchist and I will not return an indictment. And he was like, well, too bad you're on the grand jury. And so he convinced everybody to return no indictment. And the prosecutor was like, what? Like, what just happened? And it's like, do you let an anarchist on a grand jury? They're going to take charge.
Here's what we would do with guys like that, right? The judge would call us up sidebar and be like, we're not going to pick this guy. He's going to be the alternate. I'm going to make him sit here for 2 months. Dismiss him. And we did, and it's the judge's call. And
I'd be completely honest. If I got jury duty, I'd go there and be like, I would absolutely love to be involved in this process. I love the idea of jury duty and civic duty, and I am also heavily biased against the state. I'm just being completely honest. I would love to weigh all the evidence, and if you were fair and honest, I would make a fair and honest assessment. But keep in mind, I don't trust the state.
Do you have a duty to inform the judge or anyone picking you that you believe in jury nullification?
Yes.
That you have to tell them if you believe in that idea, even if you're not asked.
Jury nullification
directly.
is just literally illegal. So,
Okay.
like, as a defense attorney, as a public defender, I wanted to argue jury nullification. Like, look at my poor client. You know, he's just the state versus, this penniless pauper. You can't do that. There's crafty ways to get around that. But the other thing about jury selection is about 80% of your reversals come from improper jury selection. This is why judges are so guarded against it, because they want to make sure it's the racial thing. It's called Batson challenges or whatever. Like, you can't. Every juror has a racial profile under the law, and you can't strike one just for some race decision. And a lot of reversals come because the defense and the prosecution don't do enough to what we call state the record of what the case actually is, and the judge screws up, and that's where a lot of reversals come in.
This is the first I've heard that jury nullification is illegal. What's the history of that? I thought it was totally legal.
No, you can't. What the premise is, you have to be able to argue the facts that are presented in the case, right? And the facts that are presented in the case as to whatever the charge is. You can't go in there and be like, this guy has had the worst life in human history. This is why you should acquit him of murder. Because he's just, has had the worst luck, has been stabbed, has been, shot at, his mother died. That's why you should acquit him. You can't say that. You can say you should acquit him because he's had a rough life, but in the instance of the murder thing, he actually didn't do it.
What if it's like a drug charge and you don't believe in the law? Like, you don't believe the law should have been implied here because you don't believe in victimless crimes, and you don't think this should be used on him. So that's why you want to nullify this by voting as a juror and saying this shouldn't be applied here.
Then what should happen is the state should be very careful in what questions that they ask the jury on voir dire. And if they don't ask you those questions, then you don't have to answer those questions, but you keep it to yourself. You don't stand up and say, I believe in jury nullification. If you're going to go nullify a jury, and by the way, I fully 100% support jury nullification. This show is brought to you by jury nullification. No, I 100% support it. If you believe a law is unjust and you are on a jury for it, then you have that right. But you cannot stand up and tell the judge and the prosecutor and the defense attorney that you're going to do it. Defense attorneys can't argue for it, and if they do, that's one of the few ways that a defense can get a mistrial and a redo at it.
So wait,
I didn't know that.
What would happen if you were on the jury? Like, you got on the jury, you were selected, and then when you were walking one day, you said, "I'm going to nullify I'm going to."
Oh, they'll just dismiss you.
Yeah.
They'll dismiss you as a juror. Same thing they had with
There's
the guy
one
who
way to get out of it, huh?
Yeah, getting out of jury duty is really easy. What you do is you go to the bailiff and you tell a racial joke.
For those that don't know, that's actually what happened. One of the jurors.
It's part of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. But it's also important to know that a lot of people who were charged under very heavy drug charges, under very heavy crimes, were many times allowed to let go because of jury nullification. Because people said, hey, this is obscene that this man was using this substance for, let's just say, medicine. But there's been so many different cases. And then the jury said, there's no way I agree with this morally. I'm going to impose jury nullification. I don't know if they announced it or didn't announce it, but I also heard of cases of people being arrested outside of courthouses because they were advocating for jury nullification. I also saw videos about that. So is that what you meant, Kash, by it being illegal? Or
no? No, don't get me wrong. It is illegal for a defense attorney to go in there and argue jury nullification. It's unlawful.
The defense, yes.
You cannot do that.
But as a citizen, as a juror, citizen, I could practice jury nullification.
Let's live in the real world.
Yeah.
If you have a jury and they feel look, I would try cases all the time and be like, the way you beat the cops is you put the cops on trial and make the jury feel worse for your client than law enforcement. You're playing to jury nullification by trying to address facts that show that. And juries are going to be hip to that, and they can make that ruling on their own. You just can't openly argue for it. You can pitch it, and of course, juries do that all the time.
So you could say something like, you could say, a guy was arrested with CBD, and they're arguing it's an illegal drug, which is completely unfair. Here's the facts. So even though technically the state is correct, the jury is probably going to be like, yeah.
But you can't tell them that they can do that.
Exactly. You can't say it, and you can't. You're on a pretty thin line, because a smart prosecutor will jump up and be like, "That's jury nullification," and the judge will come down on you.
Yeah. But as a citizen, a lot of people
You
don't
can do
even
whatever
know
you-
what it means. A lot of people don't even understand what jury nullification is or victimless crimes. So I think talking about it and spreading this kind of word, letting people know that the average citizen, if they participate in our court proceedings, have a right to throw down unjust laws. I mean, that's a big power there.
A judge will tell you no, that's
Yeah.
unlawful. His instruction will be it's unlawful. If they decide to do it, what are they going to do? Right? Like, how are they going to?
Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, the judge says if you believe the state has proven, these things beyond a reasonable doubt, so you can just be like, I didn't believe him.
Yeah, you didn't meet the bar. Oh, okay.
Yep, and that's the way. But remember that when you're under voir dire, you're under oath, and you are required to answer those questions truthfully under penalty of perjury. And so, it's really up to the state to craft their questions to try and eliminate things like jury nullification. And that's why that's why you saw, in fact, some of these race-based dismissals cropping up, is because, in the South, for example, during Jim Crow, you might have a white defendant and a black victim, and you would have a jury that they would try and strike any black jurors from that jury because they would want a jury nullification even if the facts mixed up based on race. So jury nullification, it can be used in an inappropriate way. It has in the past, but now we tend to think of it as more of a liberty-minded position, attacking things like victimless crimes. And that, frankly, lies at the feet of things like mandatory minimum sentences. When you've got people who have like 4 marijuana plants going a mandatory minimum of 20 years in a federal prison, someone goes, that's not really justified when Joseph Rosenbaum gets out in 8.
Yeah.
But people don't know this. They sit on a jury and the judge says, it doesn't matter what your opinion is on the law. It matters when I instruct you. And they say, okay, I'll lock the guy up. That's what Malice was telling us. He said, do you really want this kid's life to be completely ruined? Do you want to be the people? You'll have this on your conscience for the rest of your life that you destroyed this person's life over a substance or something? And then people were like, yeah, I don't want to. That my attitude on this is the reason why I would almost if I was on a grand jury, I'd almost never indict, is because I'm not the judge over other people. Sorry, like I can certainly have my opinions and be judgmental, but like to actually tell me we are going to grant you partial power along with this other group to condemn a person to either a court proceeding, which is arduous and difficult, or as a jury itself, to jail, prison, or death, I'd be like,
but that's why grand juries are so big, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's 32 members of a grand jury. The preponderance of the evidence standard is 51%, 49%. Not, did he maybe do it versus did he not do it? And also, you only need 17 of the 32. I forget the exact breakdown. So,
man, you put me on a grand jury over property crime or possession or anything like that, and I'm gonna be like, thumbs down. Sorry. I mean, and obviously, I think crime is bad, property crime and stuff. If it's like victimless stuff, like literally someone chilling in their house, minding their own business with some weird thing, that they're not supposed to, the government says you're not allowed to have, I'd be like, nah, government's wrong.
What if they're playing videos from facial abuse on a big screen outside in their front lawn? What would you do then?
They're doing what?
Playing videos from facial abuse on a big screen.
Facial?
Never mind. We probably shouldn't get into it.
I'll put it this way. I'm like, I don't know if it's like a.
Don't worry about it.
But I don't know if it was like a esoteric joke I missed.
No, it's like a violent pornographic website.
Right. Okay. I think that's a civil issue.
Yeah, there you go.
I think you can potentially argue like minor disorderly or something or disturbing the peace, which I really am not a fan of as a law because dude, tell me what I did wrong. Cop, like I was telling that story, the cop claimed that because I was yelling call 911, I was being disorderly. I'm not kidding. They were like, he was yelling, and I was like, I was yelling, call the police. And they're like, we don't care. So I
didn't want to do our
with
jobs.
It. So look, if you've got a person who's projecting, really inappropriate stuff, I don't believe in obscenity laws. I think George Carlin was right when he went out and started, said the 7 words you can't say on TV. And if the neighbor's got a problem with it, I think you've got a civil issue where the neighbors can maybe take up some kind of civil complaint. And maybe this is resolved. I don't think it's criminal. You know what I mean?
Wait, if a guy's putting video of himself naked out?
No. If somebody was projecting on their own home inappropriate.
Oh, I thought it was out front in their yard.
Yes. So like on the front of their house, they're showing inappropriate things.
Like on your garage.
It's
That's
kinda
what
like
I do.
Exposing yourself in public kind
No,
of
Ian,
laws, right?
I'm just talking about general, what's considered
Nudity?
obscene. You don't need to talk about and get into specifics because we're trying to be family friendly. The point is,
How can you not object to that stuff, though?
I do.
Oh.
And I think it's a civil issue, not a criminal issue. I don't think the police should come and arrest a guy because he was making a statement.
It depends on who he's making
when the police
to.
are allowed to be like, this is obscene, they'll say your politics are obscene too. So if someone's like, I believe in these things and I think people, there's nudists. This is a political view on clothing and the rights of individuals. And there are women who walk around naked in New York City and not naked, topless, because in New York City, they're allowed to. So if somebody wants to make a statement about what they deem is socially acceptable or not, and it's a public statement, I would argue it's a civil issue and there's potentially disturbing the peace there, but I probably would not indict.
There's that entire feminist movement, right? Femen. That's what they do. They're topless and they paint.
No. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, yeah,
It's
go ahead.
well beyond them being topless.
Okay, I haven't checked in on it lately.
The stuff I was in Ukraine, and the things I was told about the stuff they do is like hardcore, overt, and I can't say it.
Wow. Did you see but have you ever seen my favorite Femen clip is when the one runs at Putin and he gives her the thumbs up right before she gets tackled?
I would not indict. I wouldn't indict. Look,
My dad's pretty funny.
if it involves kids, if someone's doing something, wrong with kids, I'll be like, consenting adults can do what they want to do, man.
Right.
Leave me out of that business.
That's where I get if someone's projecting it on their house and my son is in his room looking out the window at it. I'm like, well, now we got a problem, and it might be criminal.
No, you go and you close his window and say, son, don't look outside.
Or if he's sitting in the front yard,
You come inside.
Why would I let him put me out? No, you can't.
What do you mean he put you out?
If he's gonna force me to hide my son indoors and bar the windows,
What do you
But
No,
see
he's gone too far.
But that's a civil matter. It's a nuisance. It's not a trespass because they're not physically intruding on your property, but we have a whole tort called nuisance, and it's when you interfere with the quiet enjoyment of someone's property. That's a civil tort. So that exists out there. It's for this exact same thing. If you have like an offensive smell, say someone buys a property next to you and puts in a pig farm or whatever, right? And
it happens.
Yeah. And so, or they put up bees, right? Like they put up bees and the bees are coming in and stinging your kids or something like that. You have different ways to deal with this civilly. I think I fully agree with Tim on this one.
But I would say, Ian, like your perspective is overtly authoritarian.
Well, I'm talking about like porn. If it's like
Doesn't matter.
grotesque.
It starts with
porn
that, but then where does it go after that?
if it's
house.
classy porn.
Well, hold on. If the video is depicting illegal activities, well, then I think there's a question about what they're showing.
If it's 18 and over activities,
Actually, that's a good point. That might be criminal. Showing adult content that requires you to be over 18
There might be a crime
publicly
there.
might be crime.
Could
actually.
be.
that was the first thing
Could
I
be.
thought of.
Yeah.
When we were talking about it earlier.
But
You have to have
criminal.
the city would actually have to have a law that states that showing this type of stuff, the public display of these images is not allowed. And
Ooh, that's
some
tough.
of those get struck down as being overbroad. And even if you're
Right.
prosecuted for them and they've been on the books, you have an overbreadth case
There are federal pornography statutes on the books that basically say if you show the wrong audience, and I forget what the wrong audience is off the top of my head,
Kids?
but
I would
basically
think, right.
kids of a certain age, X, or it's shown to X number of people, you can get into a federal crime. So a smart prosecutor or a savvy one would be like, you might just be showing it on your house, but there's probably like 1,000 people coming by seeing it. So you can basically be in what's called the distribution business.
So you get them on the on the violation of the broadcast rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot. As a public defender, I had to represent a lot of people charged with some pretty nasty sex crimes. One of them was distribution of pornography. And there's not just like distribution of pornography isn't sending someone Playboys. It can happen in a variety of ways, like live audiences, just giving somebody a memory stick and being like, yo, put this in.
A better example would be they were showing if they projected video of a cow slaughtery or something. So you're actually seeing videos of the cows get mounted up and have their throat slit or whatever, and it's just blood spilling out and stuff. So the issue there is, this is really interesting. When I was doing hostile environment training, they showed a video of a pig femoral artery bleed.
Yikes.
Ooh.
on purpose.
That's a lot of
A
blood.
guy just flopped to the floor, passed out. So bleeds in some people trigger a response. I forgot. There's a nerve.
Vagal response.
What is it?
Vagal response
might
can
be-
make you pass out.
And so basically, out of this 40 people in the room, one guy saw the video and just flopped to the ground. Blood pressure dropped. He went unconscious. So the instructor came and lifted his legs up to put the blood pressure back into his head, and then he immediately tries getting up, and the guy screamed at him, "Don't move, don't get up." And the guy was like, "I'm fine." He goes, "No, you're not. You're only conscious because I'm holding your legs up." But so that's an interesting question. If that, if it is known among these like hostile, these are like special forces guys. If it is known among them that you can trigger a reaction in people which can be serious and medically problematic by showing a video, maybe it's flashes and someone could be epileptic. Now we're talking about potential criminal intent to do harm to others.
Well, that's what happened to Eichenwald, right? The
Right.
people were tweeting at Kurt Eichenwald the flashing images, and he allegedly had an epileptic seizure response to it.
Or he's just epileptic.
Yeah.
So he said it was an attempt on my life or something like that, and they charged the guy.
Yeah, they the Texas court, I would say, strained the federal battery statutes, or because it was a federal crime, the federal battery statutes on that one by saying that the photons from the thing hitting his eyes, because that was intended for those lasers where we're actually directing a beam into someone's eyes for the intent of injury, in my opinion. But that was wild. Also, Kurt Eichenwald is a weirdo.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Well,
Indeed.
that's him, and for all we'll leave him to his vices, I suppose, him and his family. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.